Hi, my name is David Scrimger. I'm a licensed acupuncturist in Boulder, Colorado. And today I wanted to talk a little bit about the new coronavirus and what you might be able to do about it. Because I feel like a lot of people, for the most part, just feel really powerless with this thing. It's a big, scary thing. You don't know, you can't see it. It's just kind of all over the place. Some people don't think it's that big of a deal. Other people, when they're really sick, understand it is a big deal. So this whole thing is really more about prevention than actually treating this. So some of the things, the basics, everybody knows, wash your hands, wear a mask, the social distancing thing, I totally am in agreement with all of those things. I'd like to add just a couple of other things. One, I do think that it's really important to keep your diet in a situation like this really good. And by good, I typically mean things like antioxidants. It's just things like fruits and vegetables, because we have sometimes a tendency to get sloppy in our diets, especially when we're stuck at home for most of us. But just focus a little bit on that, drinking plenty of water as well. And also, if you can, get some exercise. The body just loves exercise. In terms of metabolism, in terms of everything that happens, it just works so much better. If you can get outside and get some fresh air, great. In Boulder, we're fortunate enough to be able to do that. We can still get out, get on some trails where there aren't many people. And I just think it's a really healthy thing to do. So the next thing I'm going to look at is, okay, this all began in China about 3 or 4 months ago now. We're not even exactly sure when. It sounds like December. And basically the treatment in the beginning of this was pretty much just a hospital-based treatment, or putting people in quarantine and using just standard conventional medicine to do that. Of course, there is no treatment for this. So really what that means is just treating symptoms and just treating things as they go along, and hoping that the immune system will kick in and fight this thing off. So what they found, particularly through the first 8 weeks, wasn't so good. And then what a lot of people did in China, because it's part of their tradition, was they added in Chinese medicine. So what that means in this case was a lot of different things. There are many, many, many experts in China who are trained both in Western medicine, also in Chinese medicine, who made suggestions based on things that have been used in the past. So for example, things that have been used to treat the SARS virus, things that have been used to treat MERS, and just other things throughout time that have shown up in the literature of here's what we do to treat these kinds of things like this coronavirus. So what they found was when they just treated things without the Chinese medicine, the results were not nearly as good as when they started adding Chinese medicine in. So one example of that, there was a hospital in Hebei, outside of Hubei, it's not the same, where a staff of 1,000 people were basically ordered to take Chinese medicine every day. Some people didn't like that, but that's what they did. What happened as a result of that, and these are the people, the frontline people, none of them, according to this study anyway, got sick, which I think is actually pretty astounding and pretty encouraging here. There was another situation where the army sent down doctors and nurses actually right into the epicenter, into Wuhan. And they had very, very strict discipline in terms of what they were doing, but they were also taking Chinese medicine, and that was a group of 5,000 people. I don't have the exact number, but very few of them actually ended up getting the coronavirus, which was really good news as well. A couple of other things just in terms of statistics. In China, we know that now at this point, there have been approximately 83,000 cases with 3,300 deaths. In Shanghai, for example, 555 cases with 7 deaths. And these other numbers that I'm going to read are places that they started using the Chinese medicine. These are places where it started to show up a little bit later. They had time to look at that and to evaluate that and to understand this was absolutely worth doing. So Beijing, 589 cases and 8 deaths. In Zhejiang province, 1,267 cases with only 1 death. Now compared to New York City, this is today, 98,000 cases with 6,367 deaths. The total in the United States is 514,000 cases. Again, we're going I think it's almost 6 times beyond what China had, and 19,882 deaths. So again, to me, when I look at those numbers, I realize there's certainly room for improvement in terms of this kind of treatment. Whether or not that's actually going to happen, I know that in Italy, they were basically importing doctors and Chinese medicine, and the Chinese were really happy to help, and that started to bring the numbers down too as well in Italy, where it's still a major issue, but it's starting to come under control. We can say now that China really is under control. And a lot of the literature that's come out of there, and I've watched hours of these little videos that have come out of China, and basically a lot of people really believe that it was Chinese medicine that actually really helped them to turn the corner, because they were able to get their immune system stronger in the face of this thing. And so what I want to talk about a little more specifically is what we have been doing here for a number of years, which is what does that actually mean to strengthen the immune system? It can mean a lot of different things, but I want to be very specific about that because the things that we use in a particular formula that I put together a number of years ago combine things that there is a fair amount of research on that say, well, how does it actually affect the immune system? For example, the main herb in this formula that we call Supreme Immune Tonic that I personally take every day is a concentration of astragalus at 50 to 1. That's really, really high. The research on this says that what it does is it works as an immunomodulator, and one of the things that it does, it gets interferon gamma really going. It also gets tumor necrosis factor alpha going. What that does is it leads to the basically firing up of the natural killer cells. And pretty much anybody who studies anything about the immune system knows if you get your natural killer cells up and running, you're going to most of the time win the battle, whether it's even sometimes against tumor cells, against different kinds of things, but certainly in terms of viral type things, this is what you want to have happening. There are a number of other herbs I use in this formula that I think are really, really important. One is called cordyceps. The Chinese name is Dongchong Xiaocao. This initially came from Tibet. And the reason that that's important is because it has a lot to do with increasing stamina and resistance because it was grown at a high altitude and people who live there live at high altitude. And so it's something that we use that we think really, really helps the lungs a lot. There's a lot of research on that substance as well. Two of the other things we use, one is called reishi, which is a type of mushroom used a lot, particularly in Japan, also China, but a lot of Asia. This also stimulates T cells and cytokines in a really good way that allow them also to do similar kinds of things that the astragalus does, which is basically get the natural killer cells going. And really, it just helps everything in order to deal with things like viruses. And these things don't work to kill the virus. There's really nothing that does that. The virus isn't even alive. But they stop the replication of the virus. And that is an extremely important thing because that's what they feel in China was the thing that was responsible for stopping the disease. But if it stops replicating, it stops spreading. So I find this to be really, really exciting and important. And I found it to be very helpful. I've actually given this formula to a whole lot of people locally. And we're waiting to see what the results are. But so far, so good. Another thing that we use again, this is based on a lot of things that they've been using in China recently to treat the coronavirus and to treat other things as well, like the common cold. It's called ColdNet. But the important thing is the herbs that are in it. It's over and over again. These are the same ones that show up throughout history. These are the things that really make a difference. Again, some of it has to do with stopping that viral replication in very specific ways. The other things that I like to add in are vitamin C, 2 to 3 grams a day, vitamin D, 5 to 10,000 IUs in a day, and also zinc. These things have been found to also really support the immune system in that way, particularly when you're up against something like a bad virus. So if you're interested in learning more about any of these things, you can go to our website at 6persimmonsapothecary.com and check that out. So thank you for your time.